The views and opinions expressed during Love and Life with Lana and Dave are those only of the speakers and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or the position of our podcast hosts or affiliates. Any content provided is not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, anyone, or anything. All right, let's do it.
You're listening to Love and Life with Lana and Dave, the podcast where logic is power and you take control. Thank you for tuning in and making the choice to listen in and get ideas for your own love and life. Now, here are your hosts, Lana Williams and David Vaccaro.
All right, Lana here. Yesterday was Valentine's Day. Yeehaw. You know what today is? I think today is Chocolate Appreciation Day, meaning that you can go to the stores and get all of your candy for like half off or less, because up until now, candy, flowers, everything like that, especially around Valentine's Day, are extremely overpriced for the holiday. So just so you know, that's something you can go out and do to celebrate. Also, the end of cuffing season. Now, cuffing season, a little brief explanation of cuffing season is that it's the time, I believe it's right around maybe a little after Halloween, where people start to see the holidays coming and the cold weather coming. And there's this weird emptiness, loneliness that some people feel, where they feel like they've got to go out and find a partner in time for the holidays or during the holidays to hibernate with, to make sure they have a date for holiday parties and that sort of thing. So that's basically what that is. It usually lasts all the way through to about Valentine's Day. So the day after Valentine's Day is the day where everybody kind of cuts these people loose, if that's somebody they're not really looking to stay with long term. And now it's a myth. I'm not really sure how accurate it all is, but that's that little weird era of time between the end of last year and the beginning of this year, and every year around this time, where for some reason people feel lonely, like there's something missing, especially because of the weather, especially in New England. I don't know if it's like this all the way around the country, but in some parts of the north end of the U.S., it gets a little cold this time of year, and so that's part of it. Anyway, I'm going to do my usual Valentine's Day breakdown, right? If you are involved on Valentine's Day, to me, Valentine's is a very subjective thing, right? There are a couple things that you can do if you are involved in a relationship. Obviously, to me, it's going to be dependent on whoever you're involved with, right? You and that person discuss, is Valentine's Day a big deal for us? Is it not a big deal for us? Do we want to go all out? Do we not want to go all out? Do we celebrate the week before? Do we celebrate the week after? Do we care? It's completely dependent on you and your partner's relationship. And that's it. Nobody outside your relationship should dictate how you should be on that day. If you're doing the right thing, if you're not doing the right thing, if you're celebrating enough, outside perspective on that really should be not a thing, right? If you are... and I personally, I just have a thing about not necessarily Valentine's Day in particular, but a lot of commercialized holidays drive me crazy. And being that I'm not an illogical person, and I tend to look at things in an analytical fashion, right? That's, again, the context of this podcast is logical. It would stand to reason, right, that if you're with somebody and you have a really good relationship going, Valentine's Day should kind of not negate what you have, right? It should matter little or nothing whether Valentine's Day is celebrated or not, because you and that person you're with have decided that you're going to express your affection or love for one another in whatever way makes sense for the two of you. If that's potato sack races, then that's potato sack races. That's just your thing. So you get these outside opinions, and people come along and say, well, did this person do this particular thing for you? We have the playbook thing, right? Where we go back to our childhood and how we were raised and what we think romance should be, what we think affection should be, what we think somebody should be doing for us. We project, right? So we'll say, well, if it was me, I would want this. And that's how we usually approach our discussions with people about their personal lives, right? This is how humans are, right? So sometimes you have to stop and think about that. This person might think that you should get a dozen roses, but you don't care to get a dozen roses, or you might like daisies, or you might like chocolate, or, to you going out to dinner is a big thing, or, making sure that you spend 4 hours at home together and watch TV because that's your thing. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be approved by anybody outside your relationship. So long as you're not hurting people and you're not doing things that are illegal, it really shouldn't matter what other people think of what you're doing, right? So when somebody comes along and says, hey, this guy you're with, did he do this? Well, what the heck? Did he do that? What the heck? I think that your relationship is no good because this guy should have done this. You have to immediately tell people like that, look, with the exception of, you're in a relationship where you're being abused or you're being neglected or you're, dealing with some type of person who's treating you poorly, that's a different story. Right? Because your friends are going to have concern for you. So I get that. But if you're happy, you're content, your relationship's good, by all standards, you're content and everything, you're happy with it, there's no reason for somebody to come in and tell you that your significant other should be doing a specific thing for you they're not doing and gauging your relationship value on that thing. So we watch commercials, and I had said this around Christmas time, and I usually do say, around holidays like this. I call them the De Beer, the Jared holidays, the Hallmark holidays, right? These are holidays that like commercialism steps in and says, if this person cares about you, they'll do this. They'll buy something from our store if they care. They'll buy you. I always use the Lexus with the bow. That's kind of a funny thing. Obviously, around Valentine's Day, that'd be a little bit too much. But they would go to this jewelry store and they would buy you this thing. Or they would go to, the florist and buy you this thing. Or they would go to Hallmark and they would get you a card or whatever. Again, I don't personally believe, obviously in your relationship, you should say, hey, listen, this is what love means to me, or this is what expression means to me. So, and there are a lot of relationships where you and your partner are different about what you like and what you think means affection. But again, as long as you've discussed it and you're aware of it and both of you are happy with whatever happened on Valentine's Day, that's about it. That's all you need to know. But for the most part, nobody should be dictating, what kind of relationship you have based on what you do and how you celebrate it. I'm going to do a little bit of an aside for people who are online. And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking these people. But there are people that go online and they go all out and they make this big deal about the person that they're living with. And I always think to myself, well, is the person they're living with, that they give them any direct information? Or is this something, sometimes you see some posturing and virtue signaling online where you sometimes people like things to look a little better than they are. And they do like to make a spectacle where they may be some lacking stuff offline, right? Again, not that they're making it your business. They are making it public, but for the most part, if I've always said this, cultivate your own feed. If somebody's doing something that you don't want to see or you don't care about, that's just clogging up your feed, then unfollow that person. If they're really good, close friends of yours, fine. Keep them on your friends list. But if the stuff they're posting is just like you're rolling your eyes at it and you don't really want to see it, it's not offensive to them if you take it out of your feed. I mean, you're following that person. So everything they post, you're going to see, but they're not doing it for your benefit. They're doing it for their own page, right? So I always tell people, if you don't like what you're seeing on social media, cultivate your feed, right? Take stuff out of there that you don't like, or add stuff to it that you like, right? You have the option with every post to say thumbs up, thumbs down, unfollow this, unfriend this, whatever. So you can even snooze people for 30 days, see how you like your feed. 30 days later, they pop back up. You go, oh yeah, no, here comes that person again doing this thing that that drives me crazy. It's not really personal to them, right? Everybody has the option to see what they want to see, and nobody else should be offended by that. And then there always seems to be some angst in things that come up around Valentine's Day, and people get riled, I don't personally have a specific thing against Valentine's Day in general or in particular. Again, I have kind of a thing for all holidays that like force people to think that they're supposed to go out and shop or they're supposed to celebrate a person or a thing a specific way because of that day, right? The only reason that I think Christmas and holidays like Thanksgiving might be a little different, or maybe even Easter, is because those are days where you're really supposed to be around friends and family and people you love. And like we have work schedules and holidays based on some of those type of things where people are out of work, they're supposed to get together in a household, there's food on the table, and it's more, to me, important to get like that quality time in with people. So those holidays are a little more valid for me, not because I could care less about what's on the calendar so much, more, what the ritual is of, yeah, sure, sometimes people are out buying presents and driving themselves crazy, going and standing in lines and, Black Friday and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I think it's a valuable thing to sit down with people that you don't ever see most of the year because everybody's working or they're in another state or another country or whatever the case may be. And so their schedules are kind of looser and lightened up. And so everybody can kind of get in the same room. To me, that makes the holiday more worthwhile. Valentine's Day doesn't really have that kind of slant to it. But anyway, so I'm not going to say that I'm going to use love languages for a second here. And I'm not going to say that love languages are set in stone. And I know that they're kind of religiously based. They kind of come from a religious based, where Chapman breaks down 5 different things that people see as love and express as love and would like to receive as love. But, and I'll use the word love today because it's Valentine's Day was yesterday, so we're in the hangover of Valentine's Day today. But if you know your love language, there's things that like kind of, I think, help you to both understand yourself. And let's be honest, before we get involved with other people, especially in a relationship that's romantic, but even with people we know, right? Knowing ourselves really well is like the first step to almost anything. I don't think you can know who you know what you want, or you can know where you're going, kind of, unless you know who you are. Knowing who you are is like step one, right? Understanding yourself. Sometimes you got to go off for like months and what they call find yourself. Okay, who am I? What do I want? What is my purpose in life? Why am I here? What am I trying to do? And get all of that straight. Some people really don't ever sit and do that. And it's very evident in the way that they act day in and day out, because somebody who doesn't know who they are doesn't know what they're doing, doesn't know who they want, and really can't relate to anyone else. They're usually kind of a messy person if they don't really understand themselves that well. Again, some people like to avoid knowing themselves. I don't understand that at all. But if you know who you are, and you know you are Jane Smith, and you are located in this particular town, this city, this neighborhood, you come from these parents, you come from this family background, you come from this culture, you've decided to cultivate your friends around you to be who they are because they're important to you, right? And you've weeded out people that were toxic. You've weeded out people that, for lack of a better term, don't really add anything to your life. Not that people are supposed to do things for you, but more like, is this person healthy for me to be around? Like, some people just really don't click with you, and that's fine. So you know yourself, and here's the career. I like doing this for a living, and I'm going to pursue this career. I'm going to go to school, maybe get a degree, and follow this career path because this is something that I love to do. And these are all things that make you you. Once you kind of have a good stance on who you are, then being in a relationship with somebody else is easier, especially if you're interested in doing work on yourself, right? It's never easy to be you. So we have to do some diligence on who am I? What am I doing? I mentioned mindfulness in the last podcast or two, where you not only react to the world around you, but you stop and think about why you're reacting to the world around you. That's a step back. It's an additional step in there between what's happening and what you do. And you say, and of course, with DBT, with the last 3 episodes in December, that's basically what we discussed. Oh, I'm upset about this thing. Why am I upset about this thing? Instead of just being upset and saying, well, I'm upset, so I'm just going to go and destroy stuff and scream at people and whatever, which a lot of people do, I'm going to instead stop and say, why? Where are my feelings coming from? Why am I upset about whatever's happening? Let me dig into that a little bit to see, I shouldn't be upset about this. If you look around at something and you're not digging it, but you really can't pinpoint what the problem is, there's nothing wrong with taking 5 seconds at least to say, hey, let me investigate this. At the end of the day, right, all of that. Then you start to say, okay, well, and when I'm in a relationship, how do I represent myself in a relationship? How do I show up? How do I give appreciation to other people? How do I love other people? What do I tend to do? What is my go-to? And then this is where the love languages come in, right? And there's the 5 love languages. One is physical touch. One is words of appreciation. One is acts of service. One is gifts, and one is quality time, right? There's no science that's correct, right? And so maybe this is just, at the end of the day, the love languages will morph into something a little more robust than it is. But this is what we're working with now. You want to really discover 2 things. And again, I'm not telling you the love languages is something to live by, but it's kind of a good little template to kind of say, okay, what do I like? Out of those 5 things, when somebody does one of those things for me, which one of those things is it that I appreciate the most? And I would say take a piece of paper right now and say to yourself, do I appreciate the most when my significant other makes me coffee? Well, that's an act of service. Do I like it when they make me something that they know I'll appreciate, or they'll find me a little thing somewhere that I mentioned one time, and they'll see it in a store and they'll buy it for me because they know I'm going to appreciate it. That's gifts. Do I like my hand held? Do I like somebody that touches my face? Whatever, that's physical touch. Do I appreciate somebody telling me they appreciate me or telling me why they want to be with me? That kind of thing. That's words of affirmation. And then do I like somebody who just takes time out of their schedule to sit with me and give me undivided attention, or at least proximity? And that would be quality time. These are the 5 things that are listed as love languages at the moment. Then you would take same piece of paper, put a little line, and then write on the bottom, when I appreciate somebody else, how do I show that, right? Because love languages is a give-receive based on how it's set up, right? So you give a certain way, you receive a certain way. Some people do the same thing in both directions, or what we would say full duplex, or some people completely receive differently than they give. Some people love to give gifts, but they really would rather prefer to have their hand held, and that's what makes them feel good, but that's not how they show it. They'll do something completely different. So write down write a line under what you just wrote, and then underneath, do the same thing. And then once you have those two things down, it sounds really weird, but that's actually an important thing to know. And if your partner does the same thing, then you guys can kind of sort of coordinate on what it is that you do. And the both of you will both feel understood and feel more appreciated by knowing these things. So those are your love languages, right? How you relate to another person is important. And the last, not this past podcast, but the one before where we did attachment styles, it's good to know what yours is, and it's good to know what the other person's is, so that when they do something, you're like, oh, okay. You slap yourself on the forehead, you go, all right, well, that makes sense. As opposed to being completely blindsided and completely dumbfounded by something somebody does and not understanding it because it's not what you would do, right? And again, I keep telling people, just because you would do something doesn't mean the person in the same room with you would do that same thing. Everybody comes from somewhere different. Everybody deals with different childhoods. Everybody has different coping mechanisms, right? So most people aren't doing anything just to be hurtful or just to be mean. Most people are doing something as a reaction to their own personal trauma or their own personal experiences, right? It's the same thing with attachment theory. Learn what theirs is. Understand what theirs is. And if you have a partner that's open to saying, you know what, I'll listen to you. I'll actually look into this. It's as silly as they might think it is, it might be something that they find valuable if they look into it. Hey, I'm going to give it a shot. This seems like this is my type. With love languages, same thing. If you have somebody that's just like, I don't want to deal with any of that and I don't want to label anything and you can't do anything with somebody that doesn't want to look at themselves in the relationship in any kind of way at all. Hey, look, it's going to be what it is and I don't want to break it down. I don't want to analyze it. That's tough, but that's not going to work very well for you if you're trying to improve things. So these are things that are good to understand, like how you, within a relationship between two people, how you bounce off each other, right? So when things start to seem like they're going off track, it's just, to me anyway, I don't understand. Maybe some people don't like to do this because it takes the romance, quote unquote, air quotes, out of the whole thing. I think the more you know, the better. The more you're armed for something, the better it goes. So it doesn't make sense to me to not learn these things because you want to do some kind of work on making sure that the relationship is on even keel. So I would say that if you're in a relationship, that's a good thing to do, just in the spirit of Valentine's Day, right? You don't have to go out and buy anything. You don't have to say this thing, say that thing. You have to walk through the minefield of, am I saying the right thing? Did I bring the right thing home, right? These are just things you can do in your spare time. You got 10 minutes and you're just sitting around. You can say, you know what? What is my love language? What do I like? What do I like to do, to express? Gee, what kind of attachment style do I have, right? And then, hey, you're taking a drive with the person you're involved with and you shoot the shit. Nothing wrong with saying, hey, listen, have you ever thought of this? Have you ever thought of that? Maybe you buy a book or two to like kind of look into it. It can't hurt anything. Our understanding of the relationship is supposed to work because the two of us are meant for each other. And like, we're supposed to have absolutely no insight into this relationship and just go down the road and hope it doesn't hit a tree. To me, I don't know why you would do that. You know what I mean? You might find out the person that you're with is not for you, but that's still not a bad thing if you're sitting in a relationship that you're not supposed to be in. The longer you do that, the worse it gets. So I don't understand why you wouldn't want to know as soon as possible if it's something that you're supposed to be in, and if it is, can you work on it? Can you make it better? And can the person you're with tolerate trying to improve it, right? Wouldn't you both want to improve upon or know more about each other in that way? So that's all I'm saying, right? So we went over the objectivity of the holiday and the commercialism of the holiday. If you feel bad on a holiday that you're not living up to whatever it is the holiday is supposed to be, that's commercialism. That's the marketing, all the stuff that hits you in your daily life, you know, commercials on the radio and stuff on TV. And there's always something that you're going to hear geared around the holiday that you're sitting in that tells you, well, you're not good enough. You don't have somebody in your life, and this is for a Valentine's Day show. That's not really what they're trying to say. What they're trying to do is they're trying to make you feel like you should be part of a couple because that basically makes them more money. So understand, when you feel bad about something like that, I'm telling you right now, any holiday you feel bad about because you don't feel like your life is where it's supposed to be, that is a direct result of commercial marketing. Therefore, you should think twice about it and say, okay, I know that doesn't make much of a difference because I've learned this from listening to too many commercials or whatever. I've seen too many billboards. I've watched too many TV shows, whatever. So forget about it. And it's one day. I mean, think about it. It's one day. Even if you are in a relationship and everything's great, there are couples that will go completely off the rails because that one day has so much pressure to it about what's expected of the other person. And the other person has to do it the exact way that their partner wants them to in without telling them, by the way, because, you know, everything's about guessing. If you knew me, you would do this. I mean, to me, that's just like you're looking for reasons to fail, right? So expectations and social traditions also kind of come into play. But, I understand if you're sitting in an office and you're single and you're not with anybody, and the girl that sits next to you has a husband who sends her a dozen roses, it's going to feel a little like, what the fuck? Right? I understand that. But you have to go behind that and be like, well, what does this all mean? What does it mean? When somebody does things that are expected from society, what does it mean? Are they going through the motions because they heard that was the way to do it? Is it sincere? Is it genuine? I'm not saying it's not, but we don't really know anything behind the scenes. We just know what we're seeing and what everybody else is seeing. And sometimes we get really sidetracked by how everybody else sees us in a public facing situation. And that's not really life. So scroll through Instagram and you'll figure that out quick enough. On holidays like this, it's like, hey, whatever works for you, right? Do things that work for you. Do things that hit your dopamine, I don't know, go to an animal rescue, walk a dog, or go to a store, buy yourself bubble bath and pick up dinner so you don't have to cook, and get yourself a cake or whatever you want to do, and just relax for the night and just kind of give yourself attention. There's nothing wrong with that either. And honestly, it's not really that different, right? If you're single, these are things you might want to do, or call up another friend that's single. You hang out, you watch movies together, or whatever the case may be. Last night was Wednesday night, so for the most part, people probably just got ready for the next day and went to bed, or did their normal Wednesday thing. It's not really the weekend, so kind of a school night. There's not much you could do. You can go out on a Wednesday night, but it's a little bit tough. Some of us, it's the middle of the week. So for the most part, it just shouldn't be something that gives you depression. It just shouldn't be. And I would implore people to, one, practice some self-love. Is there something that you really want to do? Do you just really want to give yourself a manicure, a pedicure, bath bomb, just something that makes you feel like, oh, that's cool, or just sit, relax, grab a glass of wine and a good book and just kind of relax and read, just anything like that you don't have time to do. You're always stuck in the rut of work and running around and doing errands and all that kind of stuff. And there's stuff that you see in your house that you just can't get to, but you would love to do. That's what you should do on a holiday like this. If you're not involved anyway, or even if you are, but if you're not, this kind of stuff is good for you. This is a place where you do this self-love type thing. And then self-love is good, but self-work is also good. Okay, I'm single, and where do you want to be in your life? Are you the person that's single and wants to be with somebody and you're not sure that that's ever happened? Well, start looking at just who you are and what you want. And some people want something, but they don't know what it is because they don't know who they are. And you can't really do any of the other stuff without doing that work from the origin of who you are first. It's just kind of a crapshoot otherwise. And so I'm not a romantic, and everybody that knows me knows that. So I don't really believe in fate. You're just going to be walking around and somebody's going to show up one day and be everything you thought he was going to be. That doesn't make sense. It's more like, okay, well, what do I want? And then I need to start putting myself in the way of the thing that I'm looking for. I need to become a better person so that I'm more attractive to what I'm trying to find. And also I need to make better choices, and I need to move differently in the world. I need to cull my friends list and make sure that people around me are a specific thing. And I need to go to places I haven't gone before, or frequent places that are healthier for me, or whatever, it is. You have no idea where you're going to find somebody, right? So, but even if the best thing to do really is just make sure that everything around you is healthy for you. And then that way, that's kind of stoicism. That way, that you've done everything you can do to turn the tides. You've done the butterfly effect. You've changed the course of your life or your direction, and you're moving in a positive, healthy way that works for you. If there's anything that you want to do, building character and confidence comes from taking the steps to change things in your life that you want to change. Not that anybody thinks you should change, but that you specifically want to change about yourself. That's really where that kind of begins and ends. And if you're doing that, even if you haven't done it and you're completely finished with it and you've changed something, even the act of beginning to make changes is enough to build confidence. Hey, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm well on my way. I'm moving in that direction. That's enough. That's usually enough for you to be confident about who you are and to build some character and depth in your personality. So all of that to say that you should take a day like this. If you don't know what to do with yourself and you don't know and you're going crazy, then channel it and turn it back towards yourself. Hey, am I where I want to be? What are the things I haven't done that I want to do? And what from head to toe, what makes me feel good as a person? Do I want to go and do I want to make a hair appointment? Or do I want to go to a spa or whatever? Do those things, right? And then from there, you start off, you can say, okay, I did a few things. I regrouped, I made a list, I sat down. I know it's crazy, but the more you know about yourself, like concrete know about yourself, the better prospect you are for other people. And some people aren't prepared for that. Like I know I've probably since my 20s or 30s, my 20s, probably my late 20s, I've been pretty sure of who I am. So I'm not like, when I say stuff to people, they're like, oh yeah, well, everybody says that and they don't really mean it. It's kind of like, no, you're talking to me here. When I tell you this is what I'm telling you. This is researched information. When I tell you I do this or I want this, I'm not doing it to impress you. I don't care. And this is where it comes from, the confidence of probably just my personality. I don't care if people like what I do. I don't care if people like what I say. I have no interest in impressing people. I've never been like that. I don't care if somebody likes me or not. And I mean that in a sense of, I don't think that everybody should just fuck off. And I'm not telling everybody, that like I have no regard for them, but my self-confidence is not built on whether or not people around me like me. If it was, I would be a wreck right now. I would be institutionalized somewhere, because people are so sloppy with their own agendas and understanding of themselves that like I could never hand somebody over my self-worth and expect it to like begin to survive, right? I know that. The more you know yourself, the more you become a draw to people who don't know themselves, because they're just drawn to people who are confident in who they are. But you want people, at least I do, I want people that are more confident than I am, that have done more than I have, and that are smarter than me, that have accomplished more than me. I want people to reach up to. I want people to level up to. So I always want people that are doing better than me. I love humility and I love modesty, and I can't stand people who are, are going to be condescending and I guess conceited or self-important. That's not my thing. But I like people who are out there doing shit, getting stuff accomplished, doing things, hitting goals, Those are people I like to be around, because those people make me feel like, oh, I need to step up my game. And that's something that trips my fire, right? I love it. I don't want to be better than everybody around me. To me, that's boring. I don't. I'd much rather have people that are doing better than me, that like I can use as mentors to get where I want to get, or to give me ideas to do better, to improve things, right? That's kind of how I feel about it. So, what about you can you improve, or what is it about you that you wish were better, or that you always wanted to do, but you just haven't taken the time to look into it, or whatever it is? That kind of stuff is a good thing to reflect on a day like like Valentine's Day, where you're not sure what to do with yourself, right? And if you're in a relationship, great. We're not enemies. We're not against people who are in relationships as single people. People that are in relationships should not be against people that are single. We're just all wherever we're at for the day, and we'll all take the day and we'll translate it into whatever works for us. So with that being said, happy Valentine's Day. I don't know, or happy belated Valentine's Day. I don't know what we're doing next week. I have a couple irons in the fire, so I have no idea what next week's going to bring. But in the meantime, have a good week. It looks like I'm trying to keep my podcast under 40 minutes. So I believe I have done that. So our website is www.lanandave.com. Again, Dave is on a little bit of a hiatus, has been for a little while, but he's still alive and well. All good. I'm holding down the fort here. All of our podcast platforms and our social media platforms are on that website. And if you Google that website, you should, right on the Google page, not all of them, you should see a few episodes pop up right there, and then you can just hit play and go from there, because of the way that Google has it set up. I think that might mean that our Google platform came through. I actually haven't looked into that, but if it did, that would make sense, because when you Google it, it comes right up in the search engine. So also there's buymeacoffee.com/Lana Dave. That's always something that you can go to and buy us coffee. Buy us Valentine's Day coffee. We would love it. Download, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review, please. And even though Dave's not here, he will definitely be getting and drinking his coffee from wherever he is. I'm not sure, like I said, what next week's going to bring. Could be a hodgepodge. Right now, it'll be a mystery episode, but hopefully you had a good Valentine's Day yesterday and everything went the way you wanted it to. And if not, then I would get to work writing some stuff down and getting some lists together about what you want by the time next Valentine's Day rolls around. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Hey, you just listened to Love and Life with Lana and Dave. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share the podcast, leave us a comment or review, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any new content. We'll see you soon.